Welcome to the Unattached YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about the face of boxing. Over the past few days after Gervonta Davis stopped Ryan Garcia with a body shot in the seventh round, a lot of people have been debating over who the face of boxing is. A lot of people have been saying it's Gervonta Davis. A lot of people have been saying it's Canelo Alvarez. In my opinion, right now, Tank is the most exciting fighter in the sport, but he still has more things to accomplish before he can catch Canelo, before he can surpass Canelo Alvarez as the face of boxing. Uh, and in the midst of well, not in the midst, but while I was thinking about, while I was comparing Gervonta Davis and Canelo Alvarez, I thought about something. I said, what would be the equivalent? What would be Gervonta Davis's um, equivalent of Canelo's fight with Dmitry Bivol? What would be the Tank Davis equivalent of Canelo versus Dmitry Bivol? What would be the equivalent of that? And I thought about it. The equivalent of Dmitry Bivol, Tank's equivalent of Dmitry Bivol versus Canelo Alvarez would be Gervonta Davis versus Errol Spence Jr. So in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, if this fight was to happen, Errol Spence Jr. versus Gervonta Davis would be at one. Errol Spence Jr. versus Gervonta Davis at 147 would be the welterweight version or the welterweight equivalent of Dmitry Bivol versus Canelo Alvarez at 175. It would be the equivalent of that, where you have the smaller fighter who is Gervonta Tank Davis moving up. Gervonta Tank Davis started off at 130, just like Canelo Alvarez started off at 154. And Canelo started off at 154 and he moved up. Over the years, he eventually moved up. Well, I ain't gonna say moved up. He fought two fights at 175. But initially, Canelo started off. Actually, he started off at like 147, but most of his early career was fought at like 154. Or maybe he fought Floyd at a catch weight. But most of his early career, when people started knowing him, he fought at 154. So he moved up over the years. He ended up moving up three weight classes, and he faced Kovalev, and then he faced an elite light heavyweight in Dmitry Bivol, who a lot of people regard as the best light heavyweight in the world. And so Tank, who started off at 130 pounds, would be moving up three weight classes from his debut was at 130, so he would be moving up three weight classes when he go to 147 to fight who a lot of people regard as the best welterweight in the world in Errol Spence Jr. And just like Bivol versus Canelo, I think Tank versus Errol would end in a similar way. I believe it would end with Errol Spence winning by a unanimous decision because as great of a talent, as much of a generational talent as Gervonta is, Errol Spence would prove that Gervonta does indeed have limits and that there are weight classes for a reason. Errol's size, his above average punching power, his chin, his durability, his boxing IQ, and his solid defensive skill set, right, would earn him a unanimous decision over a very competitive Gervonta Davis. I believe I believe he would carry his power up to 147, and he would be able to hurt Errol Spence Jr. I believe he would be able to hurt Errol Spence Jr. But I think Errol is too smart to get hurt in a serious way by Gervonta Davis. I think his boxing IQ is too high for that. And just like Dmitry Bivol, we saw with in the Canelo Dmitry Bivol fight, I believe we'll see Errol using a lot of double. I believe Errol would be double guarding a lot, and I think it would be hard for Tank to penetrate Errol's defense, to penetrate Errol's double guard. And I believe just like Dmitry Bivol, Errol Spence's work rate would earn him the victory over the smaller man who is Gervonta Tank Davis. Just like Dmitry Bivol's work rate earned him the unanimous decision over the smaller man who was Canelo Alvarez. So and I don't, and just like Dmitry Bivol, I don't think just like Dmitry Bivol did not stop Canelo, I don't believe Errol Spence Jr. would stop Gervonta Tank Davis. Gervonta has a good chin. He's a great defensive fighter. He has a very high boxing IQ. And Errol Spence, just like Dmitry Bivol, is not really he has above average punching power, but really Errol Spence is a volume puncher. He overwhelms you with his work rate. So in Errol Spence was not able to stop Mikey Garcia, and Mikey Garcia is not the defensive wizard that Tank is. He does not have Tank's power, and just like Mikey Garcia moved up two weight classes, maybe 3 weight classes. I think he started his career at 130, so he would be doing the same. He did the same thing that Tank would be doing. So Tank would be doing the same thing that Mikey Garcia would be doing. And I don't think Errol Spence would stop Gervonta Davis. I think Gervonta Davis would be very competitive, just like Canelo Alvarez was very competitive against Dmitry Bivol. I think he would be very competitive. He would show that he's an elite defensive fighter, and I think he would lose by a decision. But losing by a decision against the best welterweight in the world would be a win for the best welterweight in the world, who is Errol Spence Jr., would be a win for Gervonta Tank Davis. So I see so the equivalent of the welterweight equivalent. So Gervonta Davis's equivalent of Canelo's fight with Dmitry Bivol would be a fight with Errol Spence Jr. at 147. A fight with Errol Spence Jr. at 147 would be the equivalent. It would be the equivalent of Canelo versus Bivol at 175. It would be the welterweight equivalent of Canelo versus Bivol at 175. So right now, I think Tank is the most exciting fighter in the sport of boxing. He's the most exciting fighter in the sport of boxing. But I still think Tank still has some things to accomplish before he can surpass Canelo Alvarez as the face of boxing.